Hi everyone, this is William from the Headphone Experience, and I'm here tonight with my full review of the LSA HP-Diamond headphone. And this is kind of overdue, and I appreciate LSA for being so patient with me and waiting. Had this headphone almost 3 months, but it's been a busy mowing season this year, my busiest in about 7 years, and got to work while I can and make the money while I can. So had to kind of set the headphone reviewing aside a little bit, but I'm trying to do my best, and I've got a lot of reviews I need to do. So anyway, this headphone, the LSA HP-Diamond, is made for LSA by Kennerton Audio Equipment out of St. Petersburg, Russia. And LSA, I believe, is owned by Underwood Hi-Fi, and they're out of Hawaii, and currently sells for $19.99. That would be $1,999 US dollars, and that's the price that Underwood sells this for. And this was loaned to me by them, and like I said, it's been a while, but I have had a chance to put a lot of time in on these. And the truth is, a good pair of headphones like this, I've got to put probably 25-30 hours of listening in to really have a grasp on what I'm hearing and the differences between other headphones, and to really give a decent review, I got to put some time in. I mean, a cheap headphone, and I'm talking like, under $100 headphone, I can listen to it for a couple hours and tell you pretty much what I'm hearing. But when you get into higher end headphones, not only does it take longer, but they deserve more time. A lot of work went into building a headphone like this, and I'm not going to try to listen to it for an hour and put out a review and not really, know what I'm talking about. So that's why I do try to put some time in. Do have to ask you to please excuse the background noise. I've got a fan running behind me and an air conditioner in the living room down below, which really doesn't get much air up here in my loft where my office is. But it was another 90-degree day in southern Missouri, and I'm trying to keep cool the best way I can. So anyway, this headphone uses a 80 millimeter planar magnetic driver, and the driver has an aluminum backing plate on it, which I guess also not only saves weight, but it reduces the magnetic interference, where a steel plate or something like that could cause interference, and from what I understand, it's supposed to help the clarity of the sound. The impedance is rated at 38 ohms, and the sensitivity is rated at 106 decibels at 1 milliwatt. And this is for a planar magnetic headphone, it is very easy to drive. It doesn't take much power, just small headphone amp, putting out maybe a watt per channel is going to be plenty to drive this. I mean, obviously they do scale with a nicer amp. You're going to get a better sound, but power wise, you don't need a whole lot of power for this headphone. The ear cups are made of a solid piece of wood machined into what you see here. It's not just a veneer or anything. This was a solid chunk of, I believe, maple, and it is covered with some sort of varnish or clear coat. It's got a real nice shine to it. They are really nice, but the grill is all one piece. The grill and ear cup are all machined out of the same piece of wood. These use a lambskin leather for the ear pads, real leather, and the pad on the headband, and this is a self-adjusting headband. Where am I going? Oh, build quality. Build quality, like every other Kennerton headphone I've ever reviewed, and there's been a few of them, the build quality is outstanding. Never seen a flaw anywhere in any Kennerton headphone. I did want to mention that this uses 4-pin mini XLR connections at the ear cups, and it comes with a nice, I think this is 2 meters long, this cable. It has a very soft, flexible covering on it. Doesn't make any noise if it rubs on itself. You have your 4-pin mini XLR connections for the headphone end, and it has a standard 6.3 millimeter or 1/4 inch connection at the amp end. And I don't know if you can see it on there, probably not, but it does say Kennerton on the cable. Try to give you a closer look at these. Like I said, beautiful wood ear cups, machined of one piece of wood. The ear pads, very soft, very comfortable, lambskin leather. They are tapered. You can probably see here they're thicker in the back, thinner towards the front, which angles the headphones a little bit and helps move the Soundstage a little bit. But that's pretty much standard now. You get almost all higher end headphones are using a tapered ear pad. It has a spring steel type of headband, like I showed you a few minutes ago, self-adjusting. The ear cups do swivel this way, and it's got a little bit of twist this way. And as far as comfort, oh, I did forget to mention the weight of these is only 413 grams. That puts these in about the same weight category as the Hi-Fi Man Aria, which anybody that's ever worn an Aria can tell you it's one of the most comfortable headphones ever made. And this is about the same weight and pretty close in the same comfort range. And what's amazing is this is made of real wood and real leather, where the Hi-Fi Man Aria is mostly plastic. I mean, it's a great sounding headphone, don't get me wrong. I love the Aria, but it's mostly made of plastic. And this is made of real wood, has real leather ear cups, all that stuff, and it's in about the same weight. And comfort-wise, I mean, this is one of the most comfortable headphones I've ever worn. It has almost no clamping force, but yet it stays on your head. I don't have to worry about it falling off or moving around. The ear cups are big enough that they fit around my ear with just barely touching. There's no, I don't feel crowded at all. They're deep enough that my ear doesn't touch the driver or anything inside. Like I said, they're just a lightweight, very comfortable. They self-adjust, so if more than one person is using this headphone, you don't have to take the time to adjust them. I did want to mention, though, that, and I didn't pick up on this until just recently. I did my first impressions on these, and I really liked them, but they just never really felt like they fit exactly right. And this headphone is very close. It's a very similar headphone to the Kennerton Woden. And for some reason, the Woden just felt like it fit me better. Well, a couple weeks ago, I was looking at this headphone, and I was looking at the ear cups from, here, I'll give you the angle I was looking at from the bottom. And I noticed that the front of the pads were kind of angled out. And it looked like that the headband was twisted a little bit. So what I did is I got a hold of it and gave it a little bit of a twist this way. And it put a little more pressure on the front of the ear pads. And they just seemed like they fit better, but they also sealed better. And they sounded better after that. The one problem I did have, I described these in my first video as being very neutral. And they had decent bass, but not a whole lot of it. Well, once I, got these adjusted right, like I said, I had to bend the headband a little bit, and I got these where they fit me better, and the sub bass, which was almost non-existent before, all of a sudden there was sub bass there, and the mid bass, which was a little, like I said, kind of neutral, a little bit on the weak side, it did give them more. Definitely more weight to the mid bass and a little more punch and all that, so it did make an improvement. And all of a sudden this went from a really good headphone to a really great headphone, one of the best I've heard. So in a minute here I'll get into the sound of these. I did want to mention, though, and I brought this up in the first video, that these come stock with the Kennerton ECL1 ear pads. and there is an optional ear pad, the ECL2, and the only difference I know of is these little perforations in the leather, if you can see them there. The ECL02, they're a little bit smaller, and this is the ECL02. I asked LSA if they would send me a pair of ECL02 ear pads so I could try them on this, and they did. And the difference, the difference is the ECL02 ear pads give about a 3 decibel boost in the sub bass and mid bass. And before I got these fitting right, they were kind of lacking in that area. After I got them adjusted a little bit and fitting right, they definitely improved, but I still left the ECL02 ear pads on, and that's what's on it right now, because to be honest, I like my headphones with a slight emphasis to the bass above what I would consider neutral. You know, about a 3 decibel boost to the bass, because I listen to a wide variety of music, and some music, you know, is fine, absolutely neutral, you know, like most jazz, acoustical, you know, orchestral music, all that. But if I'm listening to rock or pop or electronic, I like a little bit of emphasis on the bass. And that's what these ear pads do. I also, before I put these on, tried doing a little EQing with the shit low key and achieved the same result by giving these about a 3 decibel boost, which to me sounded better. But like I said, I prefer, especially lately, for some reason lately, I'm liking a little bit more emphasis to my bass than I did for a while. My taste kind of, you know, changes back and forth day to day or month to month or whatever. So these do right now have the ECL02 ear pads on it. And so before I get into the sound, I wanted to talk for a minute about the equipment I use to do my review of these headphones. Started out with my clean power was provided by Core Power Technologies, which I'm using their it's basically a surge protector and a power conditioner. So anyway, that does a really good job of keeping my power clean, going to my other equipment, which would start out with a Cambridge Audio 540C CD player used as a transport, running a digital signal into, I use several different DACs. I think I had the Topping D50S when I first got these, and just a few weeks ago I got the Topping D70S in. Also, I had the iFi Neo DSD DAC, and just recently, about, I don't know, a week and a half ago, I haven't even done my first impressions video yet, I got in the Audio GD R8, which is an R2R ladder DAC, and which is kind of a new experience for me. But anyway, I got that in just a short time ago, and it's sort of the match set with my Audio GD Master 9 amp I've had for quite a while. So then as far as amps, I've used primarily the Audio GD Master 9, the Burson Conductor 3 reference, and the Felix Audio Echo, which is a OTL Type 2 amp, and had really great results with that, even though theoretically a planar magnetic headphone and an OTL Type 2 amp aren't a good match for each other. But because this is so easy to drive, it actually works really well. So I'll talk about that more in a few minutes. So getting into the sound, with the stock ear pads, the ECL01s, I would consider this headphone to be pretty much dead on neutral. No emphasis anywhere, just a completely flat, accurate frequency response. With the ECL02 ear pads that I currently have on it, I would say it has a slight emphasis in the mid bass, you know, maybe about a 3 decibel emphasis. But the sound, like I said, this is a very neutral, very accurate headphone. If you are a bass head, this probably isn't the headphone for you. But I'll talk about that a little more in a few minutes. As far as bass and treble extension, this headphone has good extension into the sub bass, but the sub bass is not emphasized at all. Even with these ear pads, I would say the sub bass is pretty much neutral. It is there though, it does have sub bass, it just doesn't have any extra weight to the sub bass above what I would consider neutral. The treble extension is good, it goes as high as I can hear, but you know, I'm 57 years old, so my hearing's probably limited to about 15,000 hertz, but the treble goes as high as I can hear. The bass I would describe as tight, I would describe it as controlled, I would describe it as well balanced with the rest of the sound. It doesn't bleed into the mid-range, it doesn't overpower anything, it's just really well balanced with the rest of the headphone. It's not emphasized, like I said, pretty much neutral. The mids are very clean, very clear, but they have sort of a slightly, just very slightly warm of neutral sound, but they have a nice smooth liquid sound to the mid-range. It never sounds analytical, and I'm going to give you a comparison in a few minutes, a couple other headphones, and kind of just try to describe what I mean by that. The treble is clean, it's clear, it has a good sparkle to it, bells and chimes and everything, they're very clear, they stand out, but it's not overwhelming or obnoxious, it never sounds harsh, just very smooth. The detail and resolution, that is a strong point to this headphone. The detail and resolution is outstanding. And I compared this directly to the Kennerton Woden, which is probably the most detailed headphone I've ever heard. And this is very close. It's just a little bit short of the Woden, but the Woden is a little more analytical sounding. This actually has a little bit smoother sound to it. Excuse me just a second. Like I said, it's quite warm in here. I'm looking at the thermometer right now. I think it says 83 degrees. So anyway, the resolution though, I mean, you're going to hear every last detail on the recording, but yet it's got just enough of a smoothness and liquid sound to it that it's not going to sound analytical, and it's actually a little bit forgiving. You know, of course a perfect recording is going to sound perfect, but if the recording is a little bit less than perfect, this isn't going to point that out as obvious as a few other headphones that I've heard. The imaging on this is very precise, very pinpoint, and the separation between instruments is outstanding. Absolutely no blur or mixing of the instruments. Each one is in a distinct location, and each one is distinct from the other in sound. Nothing, I mean, of course, orchestral music, when you're listening to an orchestra with hundreds of instruments, you know, it's hard to separate every instrument, but I mean, as far as, you know, a typical band with maybe, 5 different instruments playing whatever, I mean, they're just all in their own location and very distinct and separate from each other. And if you try to listen to just one, you can hear it very clearly without it blending in with the other instruments. The Soundstage on these is, it's got good width, but not exceptionally wide. It's a little more centered in the middle, and there is width to it. It does go out beyond the ear cups, but it's not an exceptionally wide soundstage. It has good height to it as far as I hear sounds up over my head. That sounds that sound like they're coming from down low. What this does real well, though, it has real good depth to the soundstage, better than most headphones. In fact, the only headphone I can think of, well, there's a couple. The Kennerton Thror has, I think, more depth and layering out front, and the ZMF Verite has a little more depth as far as going back. That's an unusual headphone. I just reviewed that a few weeks ago, and the Verite puts some of the sounds behind your head, which is just kind of strange in my opinion. I don't know how it does that. It's actually enjoyable. I like it. So this doesn't go quite as far out in front as the Thror, or it doesn't go back as far as the Verite, but this actually has more depth to the soundstage than most headphones I've heard. A lot more than, say, the Hi-Fi Manaria, which has very good width and very good height, but not a lot of depth. So anyway, one thing I did want to mention about this, and that is female vocals. I listen to a lot of acoustical music and a lot of female vocals, and female vocals are one of the best ways for me to determine how good a headphone sounds, because I listen, does her voice sound natural? Does it sound real? Or does it sound like, computerized? Does it sound digital? Does it sound fake? And then the smoothness of it, the texture, the little nuances, the details. That's how I determine how good a headphone this is. And to be honest, this is one of the best I've heard. This does a really good job with female vocals. They have a very natural sound, a very clean, detailed sound with a lot of texture in their voices, yet it's got a smoothness and a liquid element to it that it just sounds beautiful. I mean, some examples would be Sarah McLachlan, Tori Amos, Jewel, Nora Jones, what's her name from the Cranberries, Dolores or O'Riordan, I think. I forget, but anyway, I listened to quite a few female vocals through this, and this is one of the best headphones I've heard so far as creating a natural sound to the vocals. Like I said, it's outstanding. That is definitely the strong point of this headphone. Anyway, I did want to do a brief comparison to a few other headphones that I did compare this to. And obviously, the headphone that this should be compared to is a Kennerton Woden. They're both made by Kennerton. They both use a full wooden ear cup with a wooden grill. They're similar in price. The Woden's a little more expensive, but they are two very similar headphones, and that's what made this headphone really tough for me to review, because they are so close together. So I think they even use the same driver, possibly. I don't know if the backing plate's the same. These use an aluminum backing plate. I'm not sure what the Woden uses. But anyway, very similar headphones, very similar in design, weight, comfort. And to be honest, the Woden has been one of my favorite headphones for quite a while now, since I first heard it, which was probably a year and a half ago, maybe, the first time I heard the Woden, and just love that headphone. It is one of my favorites. I did a review a couple of weeks ago comparing it to the ZMF Verite, which is another headphone quite different, but I really love the Verite. But the two had quite a bit of differences, and I compared that, and I guess it depends what kind of mood I'm in, what I want to listen to, but they're great headphones. But anyway, comparing this to the Woden, I guess they both have their strong points. They're not that far apart, in any one category, but there are some slight differences. Okay, let's start with the sub bass. The Woden does go lower and has more emphasis to the sub bass than this headphone does. It just has a little bit more weight down there. I think this one possibly, they're pretty close in the mid bass, but I think this one might have just a little bit more punch in the mid bass. Well, that would, I had the Kennerton ECL02 ear pads on both, so it should be a fair comparison that way. And like I said, the Woden has a little bit more weight to the sub bass and a little more extension, goes a little bit deeper, but this has just slightly a little bit more punch in the mid bass. Then the Woden also has a quite a bit wider soundstage. There's definitely a difference. The Woden has one of the widest sound stages I've heard of any headphone I've reviewed so far. The only, I would say the two that compared closest would be the Hi-Fi Manoria and the Erzatish Phobos. Both have really wide sound stages, and the Woden is close to those. Okay, I would say this is more of an average as far as width to the sound stage. The Woden is wider, but this one I think has a little more depth to the soundstage than the Woden does. I'm hearing a little bit more layering, a little more distance out in front of me with this than I am the Woden. Where this tops out the Woden, in my opinion, and they're close, like I said, they're not that far apart. The Woden is extremely detailed, okay, but it is, I would describe it as being a fairly analytical headphone. It's very unforgiving of poor recordings. The Woden, like I said, just crystal clear, but like I said, it could be described as analytical, where this, compared to the Woden, the mid-range and especially female vocals, this is just a little bit warmer, a little bit less in your face, and a little bit more liquid sounding, and a little bit more forgiving. And to be honest, I would, comparing the two, the Woden and this one, I would pick this one as far as doing the best job of reproducing female vocals. They just sound a little bit sweeter to me, just a little more sweetness in the voices. So like I said, they're very close, but the Woden has a slight advantage in sub bass and soundstage width, and this has a slight advantage in reproducing female vocals and just giving them a sweet liquid sound. I did compare this to the ZMF Verite, and they're quite a bit different. The Verite definitely has more weight and more punch to the bass. The Verite has that weird around your head soundstage, where this just has more of a normal soundstage. They're both very comfortable, they're both very light. Well, actually the Verite is heavier, but they're both comfortable. The Verite, the voices are more distant, where the vocals are more in your face, more upfront, and more emphasized. With the Verite, to get the vocals up where you would normally listen to them, you got to turn the volume up a little bit, which gives the bass a boost. But that, like I said, compared to the bass, the vocals are a little bit distant. Where they're more up front, and definitely more detail and more clarity. Well, the Verite has great clarity, but this just, the whole mid-range is a little more forward, a little more detailed, and a little more it's not set back like the Verite, so you are going to get some more mid-range detail out of this. I did get a chance to compare this to the Kennerton Thror, which is their flagship, and that's about half again more expensive than this. This does have kind of a similar tone balance to the Thror. The Thror has a little, and I do have ECLO2 ear pads on that too. The thrower has a little more weight to the bass, both the sub bass and the mid bass, and the thrower is a little bit warmer all the way through the mid-range and treble, but without lacking any detail. The thrower is still my #1 favorite headphone in the world that I've heard so far, with the ECLO2 ear pads on it. This doesn't quite match the thrower in my opinion, but I think the thrower is about $1,700 more than this, and like I said, my favorite headphones, but this is close. So this is definitely up there in like probably my top 5 headphones. Really like this headphone, and I guess now that I'm doing my full review, I'm gonna have to send it back, so I'll miss it. But so what does it come down to? Do I recommend this headphone? Yeah, if you're looking for a basically neutral headphone with outstanding clarity, detail, separation, imaging, and you're listening to probably acoustical music, jazz, orchestral music, you're probably going to love this headphone. It's perfect for those. If you're a bass head, if you listen to primarily rock, pop, electronic, this might not have enough bass for you. It depends, you know. Some people listen to those musics and still want a neutral headphone with accuracy. Some want a headphone that definitely has an emphasized bass. This isn't that headphone. So, like I said, if you're a bass head, you're looking for a ton of bass, this probably isn't the right headphone for you. If you want an exceptionally clean, clear, neutral headphone with a very sweet, smooth, liquid mid-range that makes female vocals sound outstanding, this is probably the headphone for you, and you need to check it out. So yeah, highly recommended if that's what you're looking for. So I'm gonna wrap this up now. Once again, this is William from the Headphone Experience. If this video has helped you, please give me a thumbs up. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel. And you are all welcome to join us at the Headphone Experience on Facebook. We're up to, I believe, over 12,400 members. And we've been in about a 4-month growth spurt and adding probably an average of 30 members a day. So hope to see you all over there. A lot of great people and great information. And once again, thanks for watching my video.